Right now, across pretty much every industry you can think of, there's this huge race going on. And companies are scrambling to answer a question they didn't even know they were supposed to be asking. So let's get into it. This massive, urgent push to map the entire supply chain.
I mean, think about it for a second. The phone you're probably holding, the coffee you had this morning, even the shirt on your back. Where did all that stuff actually come from? And I don't mean the store you bought it from or even the factory that put it all together. I mean, where did the raw materials come from? The mine? The farm? The actual forest?
And here's the crazy part. For most of those products, the companies with their names slapped on them, they can't answer that question either. And that little blind spot, well, it's suddenly turned into one of the biggest risks in business today. So to really get why this is happening, we've got to talk about this fundamental issue. Let's call it the Great Supply Chain Blind Spot. Okay, this chart right here, it lays out the problem perfectly. So a company knows its tier 1 suppliers, right? Those are the folks they directly buy finished parts from. Easy enough. But look what happens. The visibility just drops off a cliff for tier 2 suppliers. That's the suppliers of their suppliers. And by the time you get to tier 3, where all the raw materials are coming from, poof, it's basically a black box.
So the solution everyone's racing to find is something called supplier traceability. And what is that? It's basically the power to track a product's entire journey, from the moment it comes out of the ground to the second it lands in your hands. And the key here is verifiable proof at every single step.
And this really explains how we got into this mess in the first place. This wasn't some accident. For decades, the name of the game in the global economy was simple. Make it cheaper and make it faster. That's it. This whole system of outsourcing created these incredibly complex, tangled webs where transparency wasn't just ignored, it was seen as a waste of money. Well, that era is officially over. The world has totally changed, and something that used to be a nice to have is quickly becoming absolutely mandatory. And here's the deal. It's not just one thing causing this shift. It's more like a perfect storm. We've got 3 huge forces all hitting at the same time, and together, they're turning that lack of visibility into a massive, massive liability. First up, governments are getting serious. I mean, just look at these new laws. In the US, they're straight up banning goods if there's even a hint of forced labor involved. Over in the EU, they're making companies responsible for human rights and environmental problems anywhere in their supply chain. We're not just talking about a slap on the wrist fine anymore. We're talking about entire shipments getting stopped and seized at the border. That's a huge deal.
Second, it's about pure survival. The pandemic was a brutal wake-up call for everybody. It showed us that if you don't know where your stuff is coming from, you have no way to see shortages coming. You can't handle disruptions. An invisible supply chain is a fragile one, plain and simple. And in the world we live in now, that's a risk you just can't take. And the third force?
And the third force? Well, it's us. It's massive ethical pressure from consumers, from investors, from activists. Everyone is asking the tough questions now. Is this coffee linked to deforestation? Were these clothes made with forced labor? A company can't just get away with saying, oh, we trust our suppliers anymore. People are demanding proof. Okay, so if this was easy, right, everyone would have done it years ago. The truth is, getting this kind of total visibility is unbelievably hard. So let's talk about what's actually standing in the way. Yeah, the roadblocks are pretty huge. For one, suppliers can be really secretive about their own networks. They're afraid if they share that info, they'll just get cut out of the deal. Then you have partners way upstream who just don't have the tech. They're not running on sophisticated software. And all the important data, it's buried in a million different emails, PDFs, and invoices. It's a total mess. The whole system was basically designed to be a black box. So how in a world do you fix a problem this complicated? Well, let's take a look at the path that some of the leading companies are starting to carve out. It really takes a whole new way of thinking. The old way, doing some manual audits, taking a supplier's word for it, that's just not going to cut it anymore. The new way is all about creating digital, verifiable records, a digital fingerprint, basically, that can be shared securely with everyone who needs to see it.
And this whole transformation really comes down to 3 big steps. Yeah, it starts with new tech, but that's only the beginning. It absolutely cannot stop there. The next, and maybe most important step, is building trust. And finally, you have to weave this new way of doing things into the DNA of the company.
So, the big game changer on the tech side is this idea of digital product passports. It's a cool concept. Just think of it like a birth certificate for a product, one that follows it its entire life, from raw material all the way to the recycling bin, collecting verified data at every single stop. But, and this is maybe the most important takeaway, technology by itself is not enough. The real secret sauce here is the human part. You have to give suppliers a reason to share their data. I'm talking about real incentives, like longer contracts or access to better financing. You have to make it a win-win. Once being transparent actually helps their bottom line, you'd be surprised how quickly everyone gets on board. And all of this leads us to the big conclusion. This whole push isn't just about dodging risks or checking a box for regulators. It's actually about building the next huge competitive advantage. I love this quote because it just nails the mindset shift that has to happen. The companies that are going to win in the future aren't the ones who see this as a burden. They're the ones who look at it and see a massive opportunity to create real strategic value. And the payoffs? They're huge. We're talking way lower risk, a brand that your customers actually trust, a supply chain that can bend without breaking during a crisis, and just the incredible power that comes from knowing your business inside and out, from top to bottom. Here's the bottom line. Think about it. Companies are legally required to get their financial statements audited, right? Well, the world is heading towards a place where they'll be expected to have their supply chains verified in the exact same way. Staying in the dark is just becoming too big of a gamble. So really, it all boils down to one simple question for every single company out there. In this new world of accountability, is your supply chain a hidden risk just waiting to blow up? Or is it going to be your biggest strategic asset, a source of strength and trust? The race is definitely on.